I was supposed to film this 2 days before my very first public art performance, which isn't really my first art performance because I've done art performances before. But this one was the first time that I did it in an organized fashion in front of audience in a gallery, like a public event. My previous performances were very obscure intentionally. This was a real thing. And before I did it, I felt very ready. I wasn't excited. I wasn't nervous. I honestly just felt like I gotta do it. It's my thing to do and I will do it. And I was waiting for the moment to do it. Eventually I got a chance to be ready, to be nervous somewhere around like 20 minutes before the performance. But before that I was ready. Right. And then 3 days before the performance, I've been playing drums and I dropped out of drum lessons because they made me exhausted. I have nothing against drum lessons. In fact, I'm going to get back into them when the time comes. But having a structure of showing up every day, or at least as often as possible, and having a thing to learn, a thing to watch, a thing to practice, and then having just like a lot of to do, you know, to learn, to observe, to copy, to practice, to practice, to practice, to practice, kind of was like a chore. And there was a day when I just realized, like, I want to play. I want to play the instrument. Play like a child. Just play. Fuck paradiddle diddle starting with left, sounding perfect and according in together with metronome, you know what I mean? It was just play. Hit the wrong note. Hit the wrong crash at the wrong time. Make it sound horrible, you know what I mean? Popcorns I ate, which is horrible for speaking afterwards. Anyway, I wanted to play like a child. I wanted to just feel free, just connect to the instrument in a way that it comes in that very given moment, which is exactly what I did. And it sounded maybe horrible. Maybe somebody could tell, girl, you need to practice way much more. But honestly, I felt amazing. It felt beautiful. I felt ignited. I felt alive. I reached that point of feeling so good playing whatever I was playing that it made me not want to leave the drum set. You know what? You know that feeling when you hit it. You're there. You're inspired. You don't know what you're doing, but you're inspired and you're doing it. You don't want to stop doing it. You're just like you want to spend every second doing this. And in this type of flow, you know, there were so many fills that were coming to me where it didn't even matter if they're good or bad or effective or if they could be integrated into some other group. Like, it didn't matter. I played them. They really did expand my vocabulary naturally. It was like God-given to me kind of a thing, you know what I mean? It was beautiful. It was very imperfect, but I think that was the seed of perfection in the end. And as I said, maybe somebody could say that I could sound better, but I said to myself that I, on drums, sound like Yoko Ono sounds when she's singing. And you know how spiritual people, like intuitives, channelers, tarot readers, they transmit something that is outside of their self-concept. And so when something like this happens, when they say or transmit something of value, something that sounds very true, very vibrant and very resonant, very right thing to say in the right moment. In order to confirm the validity of this, they mention how they got chills all over their body or goosebumps. And you know that maybe even from your own experience that when you nail it, then you get goosebumps. Something happens to your skin, like you get sensation on your skin that tells you like you're onto something real. Well, that's how I felt when I said to myself that I sound like Yoko Ono. In that moment I felt like spirit of Yoko Ono is with me. And in that moment it stopped being about playing drums. It was 3 days before the performance, so I felt suddenly out of nowhere, I felt very, not urged, but inspired, drawn to go to see Yoko Ono's exhibition. There are 2 right now that I know of. So I went to see one of them. I went the next day, which was 2 days before the performance. 2 days before the performance, I still felt ready. But to be very honest, because I had this feeling of being drawn to the work of Yoko Ono, before I went there, I felt like I'm going to get my blessing. In all honesty, it felt as if I am going to meet Yoko Ono in person and she's going to put her hand onto my head and say, "Dear child, you are now free and qualified to spread peace into the world." This is how it felt to me, as if I am going there to receive my blessing, to be readier than ready for the performance. I went to Neue Nationalgalerie. Did I pronounce it right? Good enough. And the exhibition started before I even entered the museum, so in front of the museum there's an olive tree, which is a part of the installation of Yoko Ono. And you can write a little paper, and you can write, one of them is here somewhere. And there are little pens, and you can write all your wishes and then put it on the olive tree. So I wrote one paper with all my heart's desires. And then I realized that they're very personal to me and I don't want to just put it to the world to see them. So I wrote another one. I put this one into my backpack and then I wrote another one, which is a little bit more curated version of my desires, and then I put it onto the olive trees. And then I wrote the third one, which was basically my desires boiled down into the very most important thing, which was a reason why I was there in the first place. I wrote it down and I put it onto the tree. Why I'm having this breath is because it actually took me a moment to be brave enough and to find courage to specify exactly what it is that I want and exactly what it is that I need, and to feel like, yep, that's what I want. Pretty please. So I went to the exhibition and I started the exhibition by making a kintsugi mouse. I turned on all of my senses and I was there fully present with my mind and body and my eyes, my ears, my senses, my smell, my everything. I was, how to say that? In Croatian there is this saying called upiti ko spužua, absorb, exactly. I've been absorbing the whole exhibition. I was watching everything that was on the walls. I've been playing the white chess. I watched a short film about the performance. I read everything that was written on walls. I did the kintsugi mouse from the broken porcelain. I listened to her music. I held the stone. I created paper crane, or at least I tried. And I went through the whole exhibition twice. And nowhere I found not even one object or an artwork that would confirm to me that this is the reason why I'm there. There was not even one moment where I felt goosebumps all over my body. There was not even one artwork that metaphorically gave me a blessing for my performance or made me readier than ready, which is the reason why I came there. I was looking for that artwork that would somehow connect me to the spirit, whether of Yoko Ono or universal spirit, that would speak to me directly and give me a boost that I wanted. I didn't need it. You see, I felt ready, but I wanted a little bit more of like, I don't know, some magic dust sprinkled onto me. And I didn't find it. If I had to boil it down somehow, then I could say that on this gorgeous, magnificent, absolutely beautiful, sleek, sophisticated white chairs that were there, you can sit on and play the white chess. On the back of those chairs there is a metal piece with "Played by Trust" saying. So if I have to boil the whole exhibition down into one boosting detail or an artwork or a saying or an element that I could have used as a boost, that would be that detail. But it didn't give me the goosebumps, which I took as a measure of how real is it. After the exhibition that I've seen twice, I went into the museum shop to check all the souvenirs and memorabilia and anything that you can buy that was related to Yoko Ono. I was looking for something. I went through all the books. I touched every object. Don't get me wrong, it's not that I didn't like it. I absolutely love and respect and have so much gratitude for her work. But as I said, it didn't confirm to me that this is the reason why I was there. It didn't match with the desire of going to the exhibition and getting this feeling of readier than ready. So it made me want to keep looking for it. I decided to go see the rest of the museum, which is something that I've been visiting recently, and I've seen it a few times. So I already knew exactly what is where, what can I find, what am I going to interact with. And here is where the story actually starts, but like for real. I knew that I have a connection with an artwork. It's painting of Francis Bacon. I should have prepared myself for the name of that painting. But it's this painting. Somehow I have a connection to artworks of Francis Bacon. First time when I saw it in Louisiana Museum in Denmark, I didn't consider myself a fan of Francis Bacon. I knew nothing about his paintings. But when I saw the painting, I cried for 10 minutes. I sobbed. It was one of those crying that just, your soul turns on and then you're crying. You don't know why you're crying. You don't know what you're crying, but you're crying. And it's just like, it's never stopping and it feels so good. It was that cry that I got with his painting. And the second painting that I saw was exactly that one in Neue Nationalgalerie. I reached the point of crying, but I didn't have time to do so. But I definitely noticed that something in my body changes when I'm standing next to it. Every single time when I was there, I got goosebumps, at least. The longer I was there standing in front of the painting, the more responses I've had. The painting was speaking to me. It was telling about itself. It was telling about myself. It was pointing me in places where I needed healing. It was pointing me into places where I needed to see my thoughts from different perspectives. It was pointing at different spaces in time of my life. It was giving me goosebumps. It was making me almost cry. And it was so powerful that I was there with a friend and I dragged him from the outside where we were watching the fog installation. I dragged him in and I said, "You gotta see this." So I brought him in front of the painting so that he can see what the painting does to me, and it gave me goosebumps. Which was obvious, noticeable, observable, and it was nothing I could fake it. So I went directly to that painting first and foremost, and I stood in front of it, and I asked, "Do you have any advice for me for my first performance that is going to happen in 2 days?" And I heard the painting saying, "Be imperfect." I waited for a second to see if there is some sort of elaboration on that, and there wasn't. There was just a voice saying, "Be imperfect." That was literally my reaction. Okay, fine. I take it. Thank you. And then I thought, well, it's an art performance. So, whom better to ask than the queen of art performances on the planet, Marina Abramović. I knew exactly where her performance was being shown, on the same floor on the other side of the room, in the corner. There's a TV, like an old school TV, showing her performance. I think it was in black and white, where she is dancing naked with the cover on her head and dancing on the sound of a drum beat. I went directly to that performance, and I went directly to stand in front of that TV. I stood there in front of that TV, and I was trying to connect with the spirit of the installation of the performance and the performance itself, and the spirit of Marina Abramović, if available in that moment. I was trying to connect with something, with generally speaking, to the performance. And I didn't really feel like I'm in the best space, to be honest. The corner of that room was very trafficky. There was a lot of people coming and going. It was basically on the crossroads. It wasn't really the best space where I could have a moment with an artwork, just me, where I could claim the space and be like, it's my time now, where somebody else could just, circle around, orbit around me until I'm done. It wasn't really that kind of a space. And I tried to approach the performance anyway, so I said, "Marina, do you have any advice for my art performance that is happening 2 days from now?" And it felt like my upper part of the stomach, the solar plexus area, turned dark red. And I felt like I'm not supposed to ask. And I heard the words back to me saying, "You don't need my advice. You already know everything you need to know." and it felt kind of off to me. Because I expected some more loving energy, some more motherly, caring energy, some sort of answer or navigation in some more loving waters. But no, it was very cold, very abrupt, and very cut off. Very kind of, don't ask me. And then I walked away because I thought maybe I'm just not connected. It was very different energy than energy from Francis Bacon. Very different. It was almost like it made me think maybe I'm just not coming from the right space. Maybe I'm not. Maybe it's the corner of the room that is too trafficy. Maybe later. Maybe later. So I walked away and I came back because I really thought that maybe I'm not attuned properly to communicate with this artwork. So I took some breath and then I went back and stood in front of the TV again. This time I put the headphones on and I asked again, do you have any advice for me? And again I heard, you don't need my advice. So I left that room and I entered another exhibition, which was Gerhard Richter. The exhibition of Gerhard Richter has its own big multi-dimensional room. So when you enter the space, the first thing you see is giant, enormously big. I don't know the exact dimensions, but I can put them somewhere on the screen. But it's really big painting called Atelier. So the very first thing that I noticed when I entered that exhibition is imperfection in that painting. It was about the technique of how the paint is applied to the surface, which is the same technique that I often use when I use my body as a tool, where there is many colors being blended together, not in a cohesive, covalent way. It's more, you have one color and then you have another color and then they just coexist one next to another in different forms, but they don't blend. You know what I mean? And then when you apply that amount of paint on the surface and you stick it out, there is some sort of like a landscape that is being created in space, which is really beautiful to look. It's the type of painting where you can find beauty in a 1 centimeter of space, but this painting had 20 square meters. It was really big. And I just noticed that was the technique that was used and I loved it. I turned left and I saw 3 big squares, colorful squares, that were inducing so much joy and pleasure in just being around them that I decided to actually sit in front of them. Each square is made of a bunch of other smaller squares in all possible colors except. And so I was going through emotions such as, oh, this reminds me of my childhood, it's playful, it's this and that, and it was all fun and games and joy and pleasure of art. But at some point I realized that none of these squares contains the color red, which was deeply disappointing to me. I was disappointed, for real. I was left with the feeling of, are you kidding me? How can you exclude red? There's blue, there's green, there's orange, yellow, white, black, pink. There were so many shades of pink, but no red. I was just like, I was left being like, no. I can't. It almost made me cry. It was like, are you kidding me? Am I really looking at an artwork that has so many colors and doesn't have red? It was just so... I looked around and then there was like a series of watercolors on the right. And there was one that stood out from afar that looked like red and blue predominantly. And I looked at that one to recover from this feeling that I got from staring at these wonderful masterpieces, but there is no red. And I looked at that one, but when I came closer and when I looked through the camera from afar, I realized that that wasn't red either. It was pink. And again, it just felt like it's a cosmic joke. It made me just enter this feeling of, you gotta be kidding me. Disbelief. I walked around a bit and then I looked from this watercolor paintings a bit closer, and I noticed that in some of them there was a color dark yellow and dark green, which were the colors that I used as a child in paintings. When I was a child, I used dark green and dark yellow very dearly, because back then, when I was 7 years old, these colors made me feel like I got my shit together. I'm more developed than a child of my age. I felt adult. It made me feel like I see more of life, you know. All other kids from the class, they would go to colors such as pink and lila and light blue and yellow and purple and turquoise. I was into dark green and dark yellow. Yeah, made me feel adult. So I walked on the opposite side from these paintings. There were a series of photographs, like photos, physical photos, painted over it. And it made me, when I saw it, I was like, wow, that's actually quite genius. Why didn't I ever get to that idea? And I shortly remembered my conversation with Marina Abramović. And out of there, and out of that feeling that I got from there, I started thinking, I wonder if I'm self-centered enough, or if I'm self-centered too much to do this performance 2 days from now. And I wonder if asking for advice to some of the greatest artworks on the planet is a self-centered thing, or should I be more self-centered and not ask for advice, or should I be less self-centered? And I was trying to find a balance in between, am I too self-centered, or am I not self-centered enough to do this kind of performance? You know, we humans, especially female humans, we get quite harshly judged for following our ambitions and doing things that matter to us, you know, like achieving our dreams, making income for ourselves, or, you know, just making our inner child happy. You can word it however you want, but if, like, there are still humans on the planet who believe and think and dare to say that if you, by the age of this and that, don't create children instead of artworks, you're selfish. You're self-centered, you're self-absorbed, and you make the world a bad place. I live with that in my head sometimes. So I've been wondering, where on the scale am I? Because simply by not creating children and creating artworks instead, I was called selfish. But then I was wondering, am I selfish enough? Like I didn't know where am I on the scale. So I kept walking, and I saw a woman who was wearing blue pants and red shirt, and she had red glasses, and she was an elderly lady, like in her 70s. She was so cute. It was such a pleasure to see her. I honestly personally believe that whoever is wearing red and blue predominantly as their fashion outlook of the moment, to me, from my lens, from my point of view, they are a living artworks, and they don't know it yet. So when I saw this lady, I thought, wow, she's so cute. And I smiled at her. I gave her a genuine, warm smile. And her response was something like this. That sounds more like a cat, but she sounded like a snake. It was very snakish. Like, she gave me this like cold look and like something like this. I can't even reconstruct that noise that she gave me. I removed myself from that, and I stood in front of another painting, and I was trying to recover from the after effect of receiving such a snakish sound on my genuine liking of somebody, or their appearance at least. And I was standing there looking at the painting and processing what just happened, while on my left there were 3 people passing by, and one of them stood and did literally this. Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait, I gotta see this once again. And then he turned to me and he said, whoa, you look like an artwork. You look like a painting. You look like a living painting. For a moment I was like, wow, look at all these paintings, and then, wow, look at you. And I was just standing there and looking at him, and I was wondering if I should tell him that actually 2 days from now I am going to be a living painting. That was what my performance was about. It was a live painting performance. And I was wondering if I should let him know in this moment and give him my card and my contact and invite him to come there, or if I should just, be graceful and polite and accept the compliment and let him go. So he was talking to me. He explained his point of view and how I appeared like a painting to him. And I didn't listen because I was wondering if I should just really let him know. And also at the same time, I've been processing the fact that I've seen somebody else being an artwork to me, and they were unable to take it as a compliment. So this person then started apologizing to me and said, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to distract you. I just wanted to tell you that you look beautiful. And I told him it was no distraction and it was nothing to apologize. It's genuinely just a compliment that I'm happy to receive, so thank you. And there it was. I was standing in this middle, in between. I see somebody as an artwork and they can't accept it as a compliment, even non-verbally. And then literally less than 2 minutes later, somebody sees me as an artwork and I take it as a compliment. So I kept walking, kept watching the artworks. They were they were gray mirrors that were my favorites, and literally made me think that if I would have a bigger apartment, if I could afford it, I would totally have gray mirrors in my apartment. That would be my type of art to buy. Gray mirrors. I would love them. Silver mirror was beautiful too. It was very clean, I gotta say. The museum staff is really doing a great job. And then I again saw paintings where imperfection was the leading thing, and I stood again, I found awe, I found beauty, and this was a moment where I thought, it's not for me personally, you see, this idea that I had earlier that I need to get goosebumps, that I need to get confirmation, that I feel like I'm blessed now, that I'm readier than ready to do my performance, this confirmation that this is the reason why I was led into this museum and this exhibition, didn't happen yet up until this point. But on a more objective level, when I looked at that painting, which I don't know the name, but it was on the same wall where the silver mirror was in the corner. When I looked at that one and I found these imperfections again, those imperfections that were there to be found in detail, in like 1 square centimeter can be observed for 5 minutes, which means that there is like, you can spend hours looking at that painting and you will never see it properly. In these details, I found so much beauty and awe that it makes the visit worth it. Just that one painting is worth it. If nothing else works, this is worth it. But you gotta have eyes to see it. I notice very many people, they just walk past, they take photo and walk past. Nobody really like feels the painting. Not nobody, obviously. Yeah. So I continued to walk through the exhibition and I saw again beautiful watercolors, dark pink and dark green and dark yellow, and it was all gorgeous, you know. And so I finished the exhibition and I finally stepped into the first and the last piece, this huge painting called Atelier. I stood in front of it and I said, so I've seen the exhibition and yeah, I was, wondering if you maybe have some advice for me, because I have a performance 2 days from now, so I was wondering, what can you tell me? And the painting answered to me very like, no wait, nothing. You went through the whole exhibition and you have only seen yourself. And you know what? I was hit by it. I was hit. I was shocked. I was shaken. It was a little bit like psh, psh, in the face. Because I did notice in that moment that actually I've only seen myself. I've seen my childhood. I've seen the absence of red. I've seen the artworks that I want to own. I've seen another person being an art to me. I was an art to another person. I've seen imperfection in technique that I use as well. I've seen myself everywhere. I did not reach that state of mind through which I can look at the artwork and see the artwork and let it speak to me, not me speaking to it. I wasn't there. I noticed at this point that if I would have done another round, if I would have spent more time, that I would reach that level. But before reaching that level, I had to go through the content of my head. You see, at this point, like, I don't know if this is Abramović method, but I did practice this once. And again, I don't know if somebody told me this or I experienced it myself, but I definitely did experience it myself. And I don't know if I experienced it as a result of knowing it before or afterwards, but the fact is, if you sit in front of a wall and you stare at the wall for at least 1 hour, don't move, don't flinch, don't do stuff, just sit still, stare in the wall. In the first 1 hour you don't see the wall, you see the content of your head, you see what's in your mind, you see the memories, the stories, the sensations, the itches, you see all the uncomfortness. And once when your mind calms down, and if it happens in that 1 hour, you're kind of lucky, because sometimes it takes way much longer, then you start noticing the wall in front of you. Only then. And the same was with the exhibition. I noticed that I definitely did have space and capacity of getting over myself, but I wasn't there in that moment. And I felt through what the painting told me, I felt a little push toward that dimension. And in that very moment, I felt like I'm not ready, because I had some questions that were unanswered in my head. For example, am I too self-centered, or am I not self-centered enough? Obviously, I'm self-centered because I can't see an exhibition without thinking about myself. But then the painting told me, by the way, when I speak about painting, told me that could as well be the spirit of the artist, or that could be the spirit of the painting itself. I will leave it undefined. The information that I got was, art is not about self-centeredness. Your art is not about self-centeredness. It's not about black and white, 0 or 1. There is way much more space where you can enter and observe and create from. It doesn't have to be about self-centeredness at all. I realized that that was actually very much correct. I saw it in a spatial form. This information appeared to be like pointing me towards an empty space. Not a space that is self-filled, but an empty space that is above and outside of self. And I was willing to go there. But I needed a second. So I went into the corner of the room, and there was a surface that was made out of mramor. And I touched it because it was very cold, and that was kind of grounding me and connecting me to the space again and getting me out of this self-centered mindset. And I touched the stone. I was a little bit overwhelmed. Not too much, but a little bit overwhelmed. Just like it was literally this moment of somebody catching you as you are and calling you out shamelessly, unapologetically, just like naming you and being like, yeah, this is you. And then you're like, okay, fine. So I was there, touching the stone and breathing, and then finally, I heard the painting, or that spirit of the painting, telling me, breathe. And that was applicable for me in that moment, and that was also there directed towards me as an answer to my question, what is the advice for my art performance? Breathe. And finally, I felt like I knew now that I have to be imperfect, that I don't need an advice, and that I have to breathe. So I started collecting pieces. I felt ready to leave the exhibition. I said thank you, and I left. After this exhibition, I went exactly on the opposite side of the museum, I went to see Rothko's painting. And it was taken. There were people that were standing in front of it. Kind of like in a line. Not really, but it's been a little bit of a hustle to get a moment with the painting. So while I was waiting there, I went to another painting, Lux ex Oriente. The artist is Adolf Gottlieb. I approached that artwork because it reminded me of my artworks. The elements were kind of, made me feel like we're speaking the same language. Yeah. I don't mean to sound too pretentious, but I literally thought those are the same line of artworks, just different artists. The same type of soul that goes through the artworks in visual language, but different conduits. The energy of that painting was very pink, and it appeared as a closed indoor space with pink walls, where the interaction was happening towards the ceiling, or actually close to the ceiling of the space, where the spirit of the painting was up, close to the ceiling. Or the spirit of the artist as well. I have never seen that artist before, but I've had a visualization of his face, it appeared to me. The painting is actually yellow, I saw later when I googled it. And the energy of the painting, I'm going to refer to it as energy of the painting, not the energy of an artist, because it was both. The energy was very telepathic. I didn't have to think. I didn't have to produce my thoughts in a language, in a linguistical way. I didn't have to explain myself or anything. I just had to be. Just being present was enough to transmit the meaning. And so I approached the painting, and it knew I'm there. I did point my energy of why I'm there, and the energy that I got was it was glad, it was honored, it was kind of like impressed, astonished, surprised. It was as if it would sound, if I would have to translate it into language, it would sound like, really? You ask me, from all these great artworks in the room and in the whole museum, you ask me? I'm so pleased. The energy was just so very heartwarming and so wow. And the answer that I received back from the painting on my question if there is any advice for me wasn't really like, it was kind of like, I don't know what to say. I'm flattered and I'm sure you will make it. There is not much wrong you can do. But wow, it was more like it was like seeing an old friend after a long time, or even not even old friend. It was kind of recognizing your new friend. That was the energy. It's like when you meet somebody and you have direct resonance and you're brought to tears from joy and from appreciation that somebody like that person exists. That was the feeling. It was really beautiful. It was really, really beautiful to connect with that painting, and it kind of it made me I literally said to the painting, I invite you to be there. Like, if you can travel spaces, like, I want you to be in the room when I do the performance. Like, you're invited. And the energy of the painting introduced me to the painting that was right next to it. Judit Riegl. That's the name of the artist. So that's the painting that was positioned on the left side from Lux Ex Oriente. And the energy of Lux Ex Oriente introduced me to that painting. Again, if I have to put it into the language, it would be, look who's here. She's having her first art performance in 2 days. Can you imagine? And she's asking me for an advice. And then there was this handover to the other painting. And the energy of another painting and of the artist. Again, I didn't see the artist ever before. I didn't have any visualization. I've seen an older woman with the short, dark hair working on something. I don't know what was it that she was working on, but she was working with her hands. And as I approached the painting, and as the energy of another painting introduced me to this painting, the woman lifted up her head, acknowledged me, and then there was nothing. There was no communication coming. No questions, no comments. It was a little bit of awkward silence. So I was there, nodding my head and being like, yep, I have a performance in 2 days, so I'm here to ask paintings that I resonate with if they have some advice for me. No answer. Nothing. Just literally made me be like, okay. And then I started looking at the painting. I started feeling it a bit more. And then I looked into the name of the painting. And the name of the painting was Center of Dominance. And as I acknowledged the name of the painting, then the energy started communicating with me. And again, it was quite telepathic. If I have to translate it into words, it was something along the line. It wasn't clear, but it was something along the line, or all of it. It was, how do you feel about center of dominance? Or how do you feel about being in the center of dominance? How do you feel about being dominant? How do you feel about being in center of attention? Something along, it was like all these 4 questions being intertwined into one. And as I was receiving those questions, I was paying attention to how I feel in my body. And as I was looking into how I feel into my body, I was looking into the painting, and I've been projecting my feelings onto the painting. And it literally, the painting and me, we became one. And I was able to see how predominantly I feel ready. This dominant black half circle was my readiness for it. It was the center of dominance. But then there was a little bit of a twist, entangled, like contracted energy in my solar plexus that was painful. And as I felt that pain, I noticed that in the center of dominance painting, there was a little face that wasn't so obvious, but I saw it with my feeling from the solar plexus. There was that little face that looked very demonic to me. And it was small, but shady, dark, twisted somehow enough that it made me see the face of that pain that I had in my stomach. Automatically, but instinctively, I just breathed into it. And what happened in that moment was that the spirit of Gerhard Richter from the previous exhibition, and the spirit of Adolf Gottlieb and his painting, and the spirit of Judit Riegl, or this painting, Center of Dominance, all three spirits combined together and said in one word, breathe. Breathe. And I was led to walk away from these two paintings and to just move, enter the movement and breathe, and soften this feeling of pain in my solar plexus through breathing. And I felt backed up. That was the feeling that I was coming for. This feeling of that somebody has my back. And it's the three of them. I felt them behind me. I felt them. They didn't say it. I didn't got it, but now I can describe this feeling as, you got this. And I kept walking, and I was breathing. And as I was walking and breathing, I came in front of the Pablo Piccaso. I say pray for this. Pablo Picasso's painting was such a different energy of anything that I've interacted up until that point. Anything. The energy was so very light, very open, very, I would call it very French. This is how I experience French vibe in its best. C'est la vie, just like, why are you even asking? Life is just so, like, open the window and let the fresh breeze inside, and, curtains being in the wind, and just feel beautiful and feel sexy and just relax and just feel. The question that the painting gave me was, why are you even asking? Really? Why are you even asking? Come on. There's so many. You have so many ways of how this performance can play out for you, and you're asking, like, why are you even ask? There's nothing to ask. Be grateful. Be happy. Celebrate that you even have this opportunity. You are so ready. You're ready, and you have this opportunity to do this performance. It's just beautiful. Like, there is so much that you can do. There's so much that you can accomplish. There's so much that there's no wrong. Each moment has an infinite amount of possibilities of what's possible. So why are you asking questions? Right? The spirit of the painting pointed at two paintbrush strokes on the left side of the painting, and it was literally kind of like, look. And I looked and I saw, I would describe them as silly paintbrush strokes. Silly. If I do this type of paintbrush strokes in my painting, I correct them. But there in front of this painting, I saw that actually these silly paintbrush strokes are literally one of the most valuable paintbrush strokes on the planet. And the painting said, the spirit of the painting, the energy said, yeah, you see, they are the most valuable silly paintbrush strokes. And they're just two out of infinite amount of possibilities. So you get what I'm talking about. The energy of the painting was very easy breezy. I think that's the best word that I can use for it. It was easy. It was like a breeze. It was like a nothing to worry about. It was just. It's just just live, just breathe. Like, really, this question of why are you even asking? Like, seriously. But it immediately shifted me into state of being like, yeah, right. Like, like, you're totally right. Like, why am I even asking? Like, I should have also just never come to the museum in the first place and just embraced that life is full of possibilities, and so is my performance, so there's no wrong, right? Um, but it just made me feel very, I call this moment Tetraviorian, which means very right place, right time, right feeling, totally in flow, very accelerated, exhilarated, but not excited. It's a flow. I guess that's the actual word for that energy, flow. And it made me feel just really good. Like, feeling, yeah, very aligned, very attuned, very right place, right time, right state of being. And that, again, made me feel ready to approach Marina Abramović once again, final time, because now I felt if the previous two times I wasn't in the right state of being to ask a question, then now I'm in the right state of being. So I went straight to Marina Abramović once again, stood in front of the TV. Security saw me approaching the TV directly for the third time already. This time I said hello. I put headphones on the head and I asked, Marina, I'm having my art performance in 2 days from now. Do you have any advice for me? And again, my body just felt again dark red, and I felt like I'm not supposed to ask, and I should stop asking, and I should just like remove myself from there. And again, the answer came very steady, very correct, very direct, very clear, and very sharp. You don't need my advice. I understood this time. I said thank you. And I walked away. And I removed my disappointment for a second, and I realized that maybe indeed I don't need to seek for advice. I was ready. I was ready already. I thanked the whole museum and all the artworks that I interacted with. And I decided that that was it. I found what I was looking for. And that was the end of the conversation.